both of you play deeply elegant, thoughtful, majestic aristocrats, right, across the board. Some people say that he and Helena represent the modern age. You know, the desire to. He says clearly, "Look, I don't love her," and therefore he's taking a stand. Some would say that shows integrity. Others would say it shows selfishness. Both are words that some people could describe the modern age as being. What do you think about that? The idea of both of them representing us today, and the two of you representing an age which was more, rooted in tradition.
Well, I think
kind of like us.
I was afraid of going there, Martha.
You have to also take into consideration that he rebels against the idea that marriages should be arranged for whatever particular reason. In this particular reason, the King of France owes this wonderful young woman, and she is a wonderful young woman, beautifully played by Daniela, who is a beautiful, extraordinary young actress. He feels that he owes her whatever it is that she wants because of the fact that she saved his life. So the king just arbitrarily arranges this marriage between Danielle and Bertram. Bertram, understandably, to some extent, rebels against it until he agrees when threatened for his life by the king. It's very interesting. It's a very complicated play, much more so than most of Shakespeare's comedies. It has all kinds of wonderfully hilarious scenes, but then there are scenes that are very contradictory and have a kind of a complicated morality that's very interesting. He wrote it at a mature point in his life, and it's a lot different from his zany comedies. It's very, very beautifully staged by Marty Meriden. I mean, that's been a real experience. And of course, we have these extraordinary actors, Martha, Tom Rooney, and Stephen Ouimet, and Juan Cuarón, right?
Cuarón, yeah.
Amazing actors. It's for me, that's been the best part of the experience, to watch these other actors and do my best to copy what they're doing, so I don't look like I'm completely out of place on stage.
You don't copy what anybody's doing. You're unique.
Yeah, well, that's the one way of putting it. The critics always say that too, that I'm unique.
No, you aren't.
There's a question here from one of our viewers, Martha, and I'll throw it to you first. Why do top actors strive to play Shakespeare?
There's no other playwright, with the possible exception of Chekhov, but with Chekhov you don't get to play it in the original language. There's no other playwright that tests you to that extent. You can never come to the end of it. Sometimes, especially if you're working on a new play, one that hasn't been, as they say, tested by time, you get to a point after you've learned it and you're rehearsing scenes where you feel that you've come to the end of it, you've come to a wall and you can't go any further. Or, even more frighteningly, you find a hole and you think you're going to fall right through the hole because it doesn't make any sense with anything else that's happened. That never happens in Shakespeare. What happens with Shakespeare is you come to something that you think you've achieved and a door opens and you have another room that you never even knew was there. It's frightening and thrilling at the same time. You never stop.
Wow. Brian, for you?
Yeah, I mean, Shakespeare, of course, is the high hurdles of acting, as it should be, because the requirements are not just a naturalistic way of finding out how to play the character. It also includes capability with the language, understanding the language, and getting the language right, and making the character available through the language, through the pronunciation, through the careful reading of the meter, and sometimes playing against the meter. It's a contest. It's an Olympic. It's the Olympics of acting, any Shakespearean production, especially here. I mean, this happens to be the Athens of Shakespearean acting in North America, and I'm working with these extraordinary athletes, and so you've got to work hard and learn and listen, and those are always good things for actors to have to do.
Now, you're also playing O'Neill right beside Beckett, as we discussed. There's a question here, Brian, how do you feel placing O'Neill's work beside Beckett's? Like what similarities and what stark contrasts come out as you do that?
Well, I've done a lot of O'Neill. I haven't done very much Beckett. They're both, it's fascinating, they're both essentially Irish. Beckett, a Protestant Irishman who lived most of his life in Paris. O'Neill, of course, an Irish-American who never went to Ireland, interesting, lived in France for a lot
And
of his
Dennehy
time.
would be...
And Dennehy, of course, from
Yeah.
County Cork, although my people were all pig farmers, so it's a whole different background. But well, it's, both of them are huge tests. O'Neill, with his basic point, which he makes again and again and again in his plays, that in order to survive your life, you must find and create and find somebody else to help you with an illusion. Whether the illusion is created by narcotics, as it is, for example, for Mary Tyrone in Long Day's Journey, or the booze, which it is in almost every O'Neill play, or poetry, writing, which of course it was for O'Neill. The illusion is all. So that play is a perfect manifestation, Huey, of that. Grabstade's Tape, of course, is Beckett saying there is no relief, there is no illusion, there is no place to hide. The only way to live your life is to get through it and to find a way to get through it. It is bleak, but powerful and funny and enormously illuminating. I'm not sure yet whether putting them both on at the same time works, but they sure are interesting together. Quite a workout for the audience and for the actor, but it's to be 50 years in this business and to finally realize that here, right now, that I've kind of reached a personal apotheosis doing Shakespeare and O'Neill and Beckett all pretty much at the same time. That's, I don't know whether I'm up to it, but that's one way to find out is to come see.
Now, that's an interesting point about living your life, getting through it, you know, driving and forward and not paying attention to the illusion, or that idea that somehow in the magic, in the illusion, in the self-delusion, there's a way of getting through. You know, Shakespeare, especially in works like All's Well and the romances, kind of indulges in both those things. I mean, some people would say that Helena curing the king is a miracle. Certainly Lafeu senses that. Right. Others would say no, she just happened to pick up a good potion from her father, who was a physician and obviously a better doctor than you had on staff. But the bed trick, that's certainly illusion on one level and kind of magic on another. That, not to give away the whole story here, but Bertram goes to bed with one person and finds out that it's another. And
well, that's
okay.
That's a kind of a classical.
Yes.
That goes back to the Roman theater and even the Greek theater, that mistaken identities and
Winter's Tale, where he has a statue of a dead woman come to life. I mean, there was a sense that he feels that at a certain point, you know, maybe plowing through, as Beckett would have us do, doesn't quite get us to the end. That maybe to get a happy ending out of life, you need a little bit of magic. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, Beckett's point is that you survive life until you don't.
Right.
And essentially, you're waiting now. And you know, Chekhov pretty much made the same point. Beckett's much more bleak. O'Neill was always wrestling with life and trying to figure out how do you get from this day to the next one. It wasn't a question of bearing it, taking it. It was a question of trying to find a good wrestling hold. They're both fascinating in Shakespeare as well. I mean, Shakespeare was the most pragmatic of writers, in addition to being the most beautiful writer in the English language. He was a very pragmatic guy. He was interested in real estate. He bought a lot of real estate. He was interested in making money. And in the context of being a very successful playwright, certainly the most successful of his time, he had to solve these problems of keeping the politicians happy. He had to deal with the royalty, making money, and making the audience happy, and creating great art, and the greatest art. And he was able to do all.
Yeah, it's quite a combination he managed to do.